Would you want to go on to next? It'd be Phoxjaw, wouldn't it?
Yeah, let's do Phoxjaw.
Do you want to run on this one?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go with it. Okay, so this is Royal Swan by Phoxjaw. A band described on their own Bandcamp page as Bristol-based noisemakers and brain shakers, which is, I think, a pretty apt description because they make a fair old racket and can get pretty crushingly heavy when they want to. The album was released on the 3rd of July 2020. It's 11 tracks long and just over 45 minutes. So I've been following Phoxjaw for a wee while now. Basically ever since I heard the single Triceratops from their first EP, which is called Goodbye Dinosaur. It's an absolute brute of a track with a sort of monstrous main riff and these delightfully off-kilter vocals and harmonies. And, you know, to be honest, anything heavy that references dinosaurs is always going to pique my interest. And that EP is really quite excellent. And it, in fact, made the list of my 10 favourite EPs of 2018, which you can have a look at over on the website if you're interested. I suppose they're a sort of mixture of post-hardcore and grunge, and there's a bit of Brand New and Nirvana on there, and maybe some early era Rubin as well. And there's just a ton of variety and weirdness to their style. It's quite different from most other bands out there. We followed up that EP, Goodbye Dinosaur, with our second EP, A Playground for Sad Adults, last year. And that kind of upped the complexity and the weirdness with the likes of the incredible Melt Your Face of Wax, or the moody, creeping behemoth of a closer, The Curse of the Button Man. So for me, Royal Swan really lives up to the promise of those EPs. I've said to you it's more of the same, really, and normally that would be a criticism, but when more of the same is just more weirdness and surprise and crushing heaviness and refreshing inventiveness, then it's definitely not a criticism. I don't think you'd knew anything of Phoxjaw previous?
I didn't know. It certainly wasn't what I was expecting at all, and I don't really know why. Even after listening to the third single from the album, which was You Can't Drink a Unicorn's Blood, which was released on the 12th of June this year, which I think is maybe kind of track number 4 or 5, maybe 4 on the album. Is it track 3?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it?
Not wrong, but
I thought, for some reason, I don't know why, I thought it was just going to be another straight up heavy metal album. But as you said, that's not necessarily the case. Although there are elements of that in there, I think their overall sound is much more complex, textured, and again, difficult to really categorise. You've got those screams, those guttural howls, distorted and off-kilter vocals that you mentioned that you would expect from a heavy metal band, punishing guitar riffs. But there's times where I was kind of, listening to this album where I was kind of reminded of that kind of post-punk, almost kind of new romantic bands from the 80s. And I think that's purely from the lead singer, the lead singer's vocals, which I really enjoyed. That was one of the kind of standout elements of the album for me. That's not to take away from the rest of it, but particularly in the likes of the third song. Well, I've written the third song of the album, Triple A, which reminded me of something that Creeper might have released. I also found it to be at points, forgive me for saying this, but you could be forgiven for thinking it was quite poppy. And that's not, I don't mean that in a bad way, you know what I mean? I just found it really refreshing. And I think that there's points like that peppered throughout the course of the album that makes it a really enjoyable experience. You genuinely don't know what you're going to get next. As you said, it's really quite surprising.
Yeah, I'm getting confused with the track numbers here because
Sorry, that's probably
I've skipped over the intro track because it's just it's a sort of short instrumental to set the mood. So
yeah.
I wasn't counting it. So you are right with the track numbering. So
Sorry.
I mean, even from after that instrumental track, you've got the opener, Trophies in the Attic, and it's like it just goes into these quite intricate guitar picking, sort of sweeping guitar sounds, and like you say, that vocal style, which is just incredibly infectious, and but then it's got like it descends at these booming riffs and like stabbing guitar lick, with that's followed up by sort of doom laden gurgling guitar sounds and like a punishing breakdown later in the track. So there's like you say, the vocals are relatively poppy in places, and then you've got just these absolutely crushing riffs. And I mean, Trophies in the Attic as the first proper song is a properly amazing opener.
Oh.
And Triple A, like you said, it was a previous single. So was You Drink a Unicorn's Blood, Half House, and Teething. I think those are all the singles. So they kind of reel off in one after the other, and it's a really strong lineup of tracks. I mean, Triple A, like you say, has got a sort of crooning verse, which is maybe where you're getting the kind of, because it's more like a bit more like modern, I say modern Creeper, but I mean recent Creeper.
Yeah.
And it's just got lots of really catchy melody and vocal harmonies, but that's before it even gets to the chorus on that song. I mean, you Drink a Unicorn's Blood is just an absolute belter with a sort of moody, quiet verse that leads into this massive hulking chorus, and it's got this huge sort of post-chorus scream of "You don't drink a unicorn's blood," followed by this massive beatdown and a really intense kind of cascading guitar lick, and it's so cool. There's just and there's like a sort of driving jam session in there somewhere before, like a sort of calming instrumental as a cool off period before heading into that massive beatdown section again. Half House is pretty much just a straight up banger. As close to Phoxjaw get to having a straight up banger, and really, really catchy. And I found myself more than anything else walking around singing "We're Living in a Half House" away myself, just all the time.
Yeah, well, that bit, and then I couldn't quite catch what they say afterwards, but I'll be like, "Living in a half house," and then no.
Yeah, I just sing that first really bit over and over to myself, and I for some reason that's the one bit, that's the vocal bit on the album that's become the earworm for me. And when I first heard Half House, I was like, yeah, it's all right. But the more I've heard it, it's just a continuous banger. It's so good. In fact, you've then got Infinite Badness, which is
that's an earworm for me, man. That's the one that I've found myself singing singing to myself the most. And I would say I've kind of described it as probably the most melodic track in the album. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
And then there's Teething, which was the last single that came out before the album dropped. And I really like that combination of the drums and the bass and the intro to that song. It's probably got one of the most radio friendly sort of sounds to it. And there's a cheeky little Pixies-esque squealing guitar lick that makes its way in there as well. And a kind of There's a good line that basically says racing around like a wacky racer, which is just going to be, it's quite absurd, but delightfully so. I think another standout moment for me is kind of the intro to Bats for Bleeding. It's got this kind of spooky organ intro and kind of reminds me of like an old episode of the Munsters or something like that.
Yeah.
And then it's got like the guitar lick that follows that is just like I don't know how you describe it, but I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of a word, but it's fucking awesome. And it's one of my favorite moments on the album, and it's then followed by this kind of monster mash kind of vocal style in the verse, and I think that reminds me a little bit of Creeper and this sort of new romantic kind of doo-woppy kind of vibe as well. And then it kind of it all slams back into that massive riff with the lyric "They torture me still," and it's I can't describe how good that riff is. It's just it's one of the best moments on the album for me, and it probably doesn't get used enough. But I just love it. I think the Monk is probably the only track that I'm not too hot on. There's parts of it that I do like. There's a really sort of hardcore riff on there, but I'm not that bothered about the rest of the song. So when that riff comes back in, it's good, but it's the most forgettable track, to be honest. And then the closing song, Royal Swan, is a pretty epic 7 minutes, and it's got, again, like every song on this album, really catchy riffs, huge heavy moments, huge melodic moments. The vocal moment around the 2 minute, or just shy the 3 minute mark, is the line, "So where can I be proud for the pilots who died in plummeting hurricanes?" And it's not really the lyrics, it's just the melody, the way they're sung. And I can say that for a lot of the lyrics here, because I think a lot of it doesn't really make sense. It's just kind of cool words linked together, and maybe difficult to interpret, but it's the way they're delivered and the melody that they're delivered over that make it so interesting. There's lines like, "And nobody wants a pharmacy car boot sale where they ground down narwhal tusks to magic dust."
Yeah, and I think on the first or second track, whichever way you want to look at it, Trophies in the Attic, I think, is he talking about collecting pebbles or something like that? Or something going awry, and I think the next lyric is, "But at least I've got an ice cream."
Yeah.
Something like that.
The lyrics are just kind of absurd, but they're cool. They're cool to listen to.
I did read in an interview. I can't even remember where it was from now, which is quite bad. If I find it, I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
Because it's a kind of similar website to the kind of Head Scratcher, and they actually conducted an interview with the band. But apparently, it does explore themes of national pride and stuff like that. So that's maybe where some of the stuff is coming from, on the likes of Royal Swan. I certainly never got any of that listening to this album, but that nevertheless, it didn't make it any less enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. We've said loads of times before that it doesn't necessarily matter. I know we pick out a lot of lyrics, and we've talked about a lot of lyrics on some of the other albums, but I'm not really a lyrics guy. It's more about the instrumental parts and the melodies of the vocals that hook me in. And a lot of times, even some of my favorite songs, I don't actually know what the words are. I just know what the melodies are,
Yeah.
So, and I can sing you I say sing. I can sing you a guitar solo or like a riff from songs, but I can't tell you what any of the words are. You know, it's just the way it works for me.
Yeah. So how would you rate this album then?
I've given it a 9 out of 10. I think it's. I mean, this kind of thing is what I'm all about. Like heaviness and melody is just that's my thing. So I think this is an excellent album. And okay, there's basically one song that I'm not all that into, and the rest of them, I think it's a great album.
See, for me, I've said it's a very strong 9 out of 10. I've even said possibly even a 10 out of 10. Um, I don't know if that's a bold statement or not, but there's so much. I've said, there's so much to like with this album, with very little, if any, drawbacks. Certainly none that I can really think of off the top of my head. Obviously, you kind of mentioned the second last, the penultimate track on the album, Monk. But I've said I think there's genuinely something for everybody. There's something for everybody to enjoy on this album, kind of no matter what your musical leans might be. It manages to be very broad without kind of losing direction or compromising on quality. I would say that every song, maybe with the exception of Monk, kind of hits its mark. There's certainly something to enjoy. There's certainly something to kind of sink your teeth into in each of these songs. I've said, and I don't know again if you think this is a bold statement, but I've said it's basically flawless. I don't know.
I don't have a lot of criticisms for this album at all, and I kind of feel bad about singling the Monk out, but it is the song that I'm not bothered about. Whereas
Yeah.
the rest of them, I'm happy to keep going back to them, but I'd easily skip over the Monk.
Uh,
I mean, amongst these songs, it fits, but it feels like a sort of weak point on the album. So I can't. I think I would
like,
absolutely love to give this a 10 out of 10. I would absolutely love to do it, but I feel perhaps disingenuous doing so, given my criticism of that song.
no, that's fair enough, man.
But
Um,
I think it is an absolutely phenomenal album.
I've said, and I don't know if you would agree with this. There were elements probably towards the kind of latter end of the album where it kind of reminded me a bit of Bat's Alter Nature. I think that's
Yeah,
to do with the kind of unusual kind of time signatures and the kind of sounds that they're able to create with this. But as you know, I wasn't a massive fan of Bat's Alter Nature, whereas I kind of much prefer this. But there's definite similarities there, I think.
I hadn't really thought about it, but there absolutely is, and I mean, I was all over that Bats album,
Mm.
so it's I suppose maybe a little surprising that you're more into this, but I guess that's the strength of what they're doing. Maybe Bats is a little more. Is it more extreme? I don't know. I don't
I'm
know.
not too sure. I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen to it
Yeah,
and compare the two.
but,
But yeah, definite strong 9 out of 10 then.
yeah. Really, I mean, and again, this is a debut album, so for a debut, it's phenomenal, and they're both their EPs prior to this are excellent as well. So they've got a really strong set of songs now. So this is a band that I've been wanting to see live for quite a long time. So it'll be exciting once that's actually possible. So looking forward to that. So that was Royal Swan, the debut album from Phoxjaw.